I think we should have a serious conversation about TikTok. TikTok, oh man, TikTok as a platform has become extremely bigoted at this point. Like, the amount of bigotry and the amount of just just misogynistic, racist, transphobic content you've seen on the internet is pretty much just all over TikTok at this point. Like, you really can't go anywhere on TikTok without seeing some sort of bigotry on the platform in pretty much any way. And I think it's time to have a serious conversation about TikTok. Because the levels of bigotry, the levels of misinformation and disinformation that you'll see on the internet is pretty much just infested itself all over TikTok. It's pretty much become inescapable, and I think it's time to have a serious TikTok is that there's just no content moderation, meaning that pretty much anybody can upload anything onto the platform with basically little to no context or little to no adversion to or just awareness to the type of content that could be uploaded to the platform. The second biggest problem with TikTok is the fact that there's just no comments shifting with how Twitch has ways of being able to limit or delete phrases from even being able to said underneath that comment section. That's a huge problem with TikTok because there's pretty much anybody can comment anything. It's not only can people just upload whatever they want to upload on the TikTok, they can also just comment anything under any woman's post whatsoever. The third biggest problem with TikTok is that it just feeds into basically just a rabbit hole. And essentially, one person who can say something onto TikTok, it can be seen by thousands of other people, and then 100 of those people can make the same type of content. And while that's maybe not be bad at surface level, but when it comes to misinformation, when it comes to disinformation, when it comes to things like facts about R-word statistics or facts about racism or anything of that nature, where heavy topics that need to be researched, that need to be factually accurate. If someone gets it wrong and then 100 other people believe in that, then you've got hundreds of thousands of people who just believe in the same bit of misinformation that really just creates it just makes it true. And when you look at racial propaganda, especially when it came to the Ku Klux Klan or anything of that nature, it really was just repetition, which is the racial propaganda on which if you say it enough, it basically becomes true. And that's the problem with TikTok, because it takes that idea and multiplies it by 100,000, and that's just not any good. Well, you see videos like this with over 80,000 views, just basically being able to put up any text-to-speech that they would want in order to have any sort of messaging or put it out there. And because there's just no monitoring of any content whatsoever on this platform, you can just put something up this, and then obviously, because people are, very bigoted, or it's just you see 80,000 likes, 80,000 different people liked this specific video. I mean, you have people saying things like J.K. Rowling said nothing wrong. I mean, she's said plenty of transphobic stuff and racist stuff, but it's anybody can put out any opinion that they want to, which might solicit people to say, oh yeah, free speech. Well, I mean, it gets even worse because, yeah, that's just transphobia, which is still bad and awful. But then you have videos like this where it's just like, Paris now and whatever. And now it's just like, see all the black people there, basically. This video is just nothing more than just, saying that black people bring nothing but, trash and litter. And you see all the Paris now with all the litter everywhere, and all the protests, just black people. Because these videos are just, racial. And then it's like, oh, now there's beauty in Paris again because of all the white people, and there's no trash and litter. Basically, just saying black people bring nothing but, like, just poverty, I guess. And, again, just 9,345 likes. Here's even more transphobia. He'll put out there 4,000 likes. Almost 5,000 likes, to be honest. And it's pretty sad to see. Again, another 4,000 likes. Dissing trans people over and over and over again. Even having the F word in there. Even though it's a little blocked out, but you see the point. You have this guy with over 140,000 likes talking about Hogwarts Legacy, basically dissing this trans person openly. 140,000 likes. I don't even want to play it because I don't really want to have it in there. And then, again, because you can basically put on anything you like on TikTok with basically no content moderation, here's Sir Oswald Mosley. If you don't know anything about this guy, you can just do a simple Google search could probably tell you what this guy's all about. I mean, literally just hailing Hitler, or, that guy. Just openly praising Nazi for 1945, very racial times. I mean, this guy's like, stop immigration now, vote Hammerstein. That's great. Again, because, in these people's minds, black people really just do nothing. They don't contribute to society in any way. They're just poverty-stricken fools who can't do anything right. It's just more racism. I mean, yeah, this is TikTok. A lot of people are going to say things like, well, TikTok as a platform can't get rid of any of this stuff, but YouTube can. YouTube gets rid of this stuff all the time. It's perfectly capable of getting rid of all this stuff. Here's just the blatant racism. I mean, all of this realistically is just blatant racism that I'm trying to show you, which is the first part of my... And then the first part of what I was trying to show you about the 3 different parts of, I guess, the type of bigotry you're going to find on the TikTok platform. It's just, this is blatant. And I'll show you the other ones, which are just unconscious bigotry, where it's like bigotry that's not really seen as bigotry, or is not so in your face bigotry, like other type of stuff that I'll get later into the videos. But this is just trying to show you guys realistically. I mean, if you can't tell the problem with this type of content, I mean, 40,000 likes praising Nazi soldiers, just Nazi soldiers, while being transphobic. So that's a lot of the blatant racism you'll see. And obviously anybody who looks at this is like, yeah, okay, that's really bad. And obviously it is, but there's the other 2 types of racism that I think get more views and get way more attention than these types of videos. But these types of videos get a lot of views. I mean, you didn't see a single video underneath this post with like less than 1,000 views. Like, these are not small videos. These get thousands of likes. Thousands of likes too. I mean, this probably has a few thousand views on these videos alone. And it's like, I only bookmarked these videos just to show them to you. But I mean, you see other people, they have thousands of bookmarks on this video. Thousands of people want to see this content, actively are engaging in this content. It's like, man. So that's the first part. And I just want to show you guys this because this is not uncommon. There are thousands of videos like this all the time, all over TikTok, constantly. And the other types of bigotry get even more views than this, which actually is really concerning because when someone's unconsciously bigoted, whether it's unconscious racism, unconscious anti-Semitism, they're being anti-Semitic, racist, bigoted, transphobic in any way without even realizing it. So, okay, so this is the second part of this video, and it's the sort of unconscious racism. It's the racism in which people will kind of mask their bigotry or racism or whatever it is under the scope of a fact or a statistic. And this type of racism is way, way worse because people will actually believe these statistics to be true, even though they have pretty racial imbalances within their statistics. They're very, very skewed, or they might not even be facts at all. And because TikTok just allows you to post anything, and because people like will see just a wall of text or just a wall of anything, and like kind of just presume that it's actually a fact, is what makes this way worse. So what you're gonna see here is just a bunch of videos here, just portraying rape statistics, which essentially doesn't sound bad or anything, talking about rape or whatever, but like when you actually look at what they're saying, you can start to see the real racism. Like for example, here it says Sweden stand, basically a country filled with black people essentially, because black people bring nothing but poverty, they bring nothing but crime, as we saw in the other videos. The usual racism, but this racism is kind of like a fact or a statistic that people would kind of see as like being able to be like right or something, even though it's completely false. I don't even believe this statistic was like actually taken from somewhere like legitimately. I think it was just made up, really. I mean, there's no evidence. He didn't even provide like a source to this, so I have no way of proving whether or not the statistic has any merit whatsoever, but you can kind of see where he's going with it. So it's the kind of logic and facts, because like logic and facts, it's like on the surface, but then when you look underneath what they're actually trying to tell you, it's just a lot more bigotry. And that's the kind of the second form of the sort of bigotry you're going to see on the internet, or at least on TikTok, which is really why we need more censorship on the platform, because things like this is just like it doesn't make sense.
I'm sure we all know why we've all gathered here today.
Especially when people
and talk about the dangers of misandry and new wave feminism, I just stopped listening. The main cause of death for pregnant women? Homicide. Of misogyny and the way it's permeated our society. But 1 in every 3 women have been.
So I looked it up, and I found the article that says the homicide leading cause of death of pregnant women in the United States. October 2021, but I just want to come here where it says more likely to be murdered than die from abstract causes. These homicides are directly linked to a deadly mix of intimate partner violence and firearms, according to the researchers of Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Homicide among pregnant women are more prevalent deaths than hypertensive disorders, hemorrhage, or sepsis, wrote Rebecca Wan, postdoctoral research follower, and Karen Stan Cohen, professor of psychiatric epidemiology, in the October 19th editorial in the Journal of BMJ. Check. And the reason why I'm talking about this is not to attack what this person is saying in its context of like trying to talk about like rape or sexual assault or anything like that, but it's about the misinformation and how this type of stuff gets permeated within TikTok to just be able to be blasted all over the place and with no real fact checking on these types of causes. Because when you hear something like that, it's like, okay, that's obviously really bad. But you should also know how many women actually die of these causes. The total population of women in the United States, which is 167.5 million. Blood pressure. There are over 3 million cases per year. This number comes out to about the mortality rates of women just in general. If you look at the total number of births in 2019, so this is one that was pre-COVID, was 3,747,540. If you look at the total number of deaths, it was 751. So to figure that out, you would just to figure out how many women this actually affected versus how many women died during birth versus how many lived during birth. It comes out to about 0.02% of women would have died during 2019. That means that 99.98% of women who did give birth totally fine. And again, this 0.02% still causes 0.02. And so the reason is not to attack this person and what they just said specifically, but I think that it does something that I think is very misleading and very misinforming people, as if this is some cause that's really, affecting a lot of pregnant women, when in actuality, it's not really affecting the vast majority of pregnant women. Now, am I saying that pregnant women this is not a non-issue? No. But I think the way in which people are reporting these things, and I think the way that people are talking about these things, and I think the way that people are presenting these facts as if they're, extremely, extremely prevalent without actually stating how many women are actually dying versus how many women are actually giving birth successfully, I think it paints a completely different picture. And it's all about narrative. It's all about perspective. It's all about, what the messaging actually is. And if you look at what she said, and again, it's like she didn't say anything that's incorrect, but this is the real number of deaths that actually happened, according to the CDC, right? It's not like there's this widespread issue of just men just going around just slaughtering women. It's like the messaging, the implications, it comes across very violent, very, very, just heart-wrenching. Again, obviously it's a bad issue. Obviously it's an issue that should be raised, but it's like to mislead people so badly like this to the point where they think it's like a real savage caricatures. So if what you're looking at right now is the Jim Crow Museum. It's a museum that was made specifically to document and show imagery of all the violent racial propaganda, which is the reason why I'm talking about this. It's not specifically what she said, it's just about the imagery and what she's trying to present and what I think can be interpreted this way. And it really just gets to the point where we've seen this throughout history, is what I'm really trying to get at. We've seen what violent rhetoric of men specifically, or not even just men specifically, but just people specifically, really just going out there and talking about stuff like this. I think, listen, I'm not trying to say this woman specifically is genuinely trying to be racist. I really don't. But I just think that the messaging that is there can be very... It just reminds me a lot about this type of... Yeah, it's things like this, where it's like, black men are as innately savage. The Brute character portrays black men as innately savage, animalistic, destructive, and criminal, deserving punishment, maybe death. This brute is a fiend, a sociopath, an antisocial menace. Black brutes are depicted as hideous, terrifying predators who target helpless victims, especially white women. And a quote is, "A bad Negro is the most horrible creature on earth, the most brutal and merciless." Yeah, again, this is the type of stuff I'm really talking about when it comes to this type of narrative. It's just like this idea that, like, whenever people say men and just violence and just chaos and destruction and realistically not nice things, again, just trying to be, terms of service or whatever, you know what I'm trying to say. It just comes back to like this type of rhetoric that I think is really being perpetuated, maybe not consciously, but I think unconsciously. I feel like people are going to take it in that way. And if you look back at the things I showed before, well, you see that was stuff that was genuinely trying to be blatant. But I feel like what this woman is kind of saying is a little bit misinterpretation. I think it's a little bit misleading. I think it's a little bit of fear-mongering. And I think that it just reminds me of this type of stuff. And then, so this is kind of how the pipeline kind of works, where one person will say something on TikTok and another person will say the same thing because they saw it from one TikTok, and basically an idea can bounce from one person to the next person, to the next person, to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. And then it just so happened that this woman's content, or again, I'm not even blaming this woman specifically, she probably got it from another person. But even still, it jumps from idea to idea, and that in of itself is really bad because there's so much unconscious racism that can flow through the internet that way. And I think that because it's so widespread and because anyone can say anything, you pretty much have, well, this, where it can just hop from the ideas that can be perpetuated on TikTok can hop from person to person, just like we've seen with this.
Solicit some reactions from like guys watching, which is not all men, not me, and like, yeah, like, congrats, the bar was on the floor, but you weren't a weird fucking creeper. But you could also like understand that it's almost always
on the surface
a man.
of what Ludwig said, it didn't seem very racial or racially biased at all when you look at what he was actually saying. But I think the idea that it's just this whole notion that men are just subjectively, violent across pretty much all the spectrums of the planet, it kind of purports this idea that men are inherently violent or men are inherently evil people. And because of that, they just are always at fault and problematic and bad and evil. Even though all of our morals have changed throughout history, like we've completely changed how we view the world and how we talk and speak. And I think that people often conflate what isn't normal now is what was normal then. And people conflate it as those people are evil, even though back then it was kind of normal, or at least somewhat socially acceptable. But because now that we have all of the morals we have now, we keep conflating back then versus now, and how we act now versus how we act then, and conflating the two as if this is just how it is, and that men are still the same, even though we've pretty much evolved socially like 100 times over. But it's kind of like this whole genetic thing, like this inherent need for violence and or irrational aggression, and that's kind of plays into the eugenics theories and things like black people have more tolerance towards pain and suffering. If you watch any of the eugenics, because most people, well, back then in the racial eras, it was completely totally fine to like do human experiments on black people, and they found that black men or black people really in general had lower pain tolerances, and they weren't as emotional as white people. Therefore, they were more aggressive. Therefore, they were more just incapable of empathy or compassion or reasoning. And that was kind of the whole scientific theories on why it was okay to be racist. It was kind of the science that was used for segregation, the science that was used for pretty much all the violence that you saw happen, because white people are inherently socially better, than black people. That's why we need to constantly be assimilated into society. And eventually it came to the point where they kind of theorized this sort of gene or this sort of DNA sample that's within the genetic code of every African American person, which you'll see in this video here, basically just detailing this. And I just want to clarify before this video plays is that it's not actually true. I don't think I need to explain why, but you know, that's just what the theory was for a long time, and people still believe in it. And I think when Ludwig, I guess this is when you don't really do your research as a streamer, you kind of keep reporting narratives and you keep reporting things that you may not even be aware of or even trying to put out there. Again, I'm not trying to say you specifically, Ludwig, or, you know, racist or anything like that. I just think that the theories and I think that the rhetoric that you kind of push in this particular instance was mostly unconscious and mostly not, you know, trying to be or consciously aware of what you were saying. But I think that's why I think more awareness to the things that you're talking about, especially when it comes to like violence or rape or sexual assault or anything like that. That's kind of the reason why we need to have a more broader discussion about these types of topics and these types of situations.
There's this whole debate about the MAOA gene, which is like this gene that black Africans have like much. It's like a proclivity to violence that they have.
MAOA gene.
Yeah. I recommend people Google it and do their own research. It's like a big debate about whether or not, but basically like what it is it's, you know, if you think about like, you know, kind of white European, Asian ancestors as we kind of moved out of Africa, like aggression and violence was kind of less necessary because we were like farmers and stuff.
But
right?
God, is that really true?